This is the true story of the ghost ship that sent one last message before vanishing forever. On June 1947, one of the busiest trade routes in the world, the Strait of Malacca, a chilling Morse code distress call was received by 3 ships, the Trianda, the Beira, and the Silver Star. The message was short and simple. All officers, including captain, dead, lying in chart room and bridge. Possibly whole crew dead. The ships waited, radios tuned to the frequency, but no reply came for over half an hour. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, another transmission broke the static. It was from the captain of the merchant ship Ourang Medan. Only one word, barely audible: "I die." Then the line went dead. No more calls ever came from the Ourang Medan, and this strange tale of death, terror, and mystery began. The first ship to receive the original message was the British tanker Trianda. Its captain, E.J. Hancock, testified later that when he heard the first transmission, he assumed it must have been a trick of some sort. He didn't think much of it until another ship in the vicinity, the Beira, also picked up the message. Captain John C. Gray of the Beira was prudent and decided to investigate. But when he reached the coordinates given in the original message, he could find no sign of the Ourang Medan or any other vessel in distress. So he left and went about his business. Meanwhile, the captain of the Silver Star, a Dutch vessel, W.J. Gottlieb, acted fast. Upon receiving the call, he changed course immediately and headed towards the last known position of the Ourang Medan. About 12 hours after sending out their desperate plea, they spotted it. The merchant ship seemed deserted. There was no movement on the deck, no flags flying, and there was no reply when they hailed the ship. Looking closer, they noticed the lifeboat was missing and 2 cargo hatches were wide open. The sight was so unusual that Captain Gottlieb knew he had to board the Ourang Medan personally. He ordered his chief officer, Dirk Room, to go ahead with a party of 5 men to check the ship out. However, when the small boat reached the Ourang Medan, they noticed something unsettling. The merchant ship seemed totally abandoned. There was not a single soul on the deck. When they started to board the ship, they realized why. As soon as the first rescuer touched the deck of the Ourang Medan, he yelled to the others to come quickly. What he saw was so shocking that he couldn't take his eyes off it. Scattered around him were the bodies of 18 sailors. Each of them had their eyes wide open, their mouths gaping in silent screams. Some were kneeling like they were praying, while others were sprawled on the deck as if trying to flee in terror. They were all dead. In total, the rescuers found 8 bodies on the deck and 10 on the bridge. All the crew members of the Ourang Medan were dead. Among them was even the ship's dog. They all looked terrified. Those who died outdoors had their limbs contorted as if in some kind of seizure. Some lay on their knees with their hands stretched out like they were reaching for something. And many had their eyes locked in a terrifying stare into the distance. Those who met their end on the bridge were frozen in postures of panic, as if trying to flee from some unseen danger. One was slumped over the wheel, while another was scrambling to send out a distress call on the radio. Even the ship's doctor was found dead with a syringe still in his hand. It was then that the men remembered the message they had received on the radio. It made sense now. The captain was dead. The rest of the crew probably dead too. In fact, there wasn't a single living soul on the entire ship. To make things even more eerie, the bodies showed no signs of injury. There was no blood, no visible wounds, no indication of what could have caused their deaths. Furthermore, there was no gunplay or signs of a struggle. Nobody had robbed the bodies post-mortem. The belongings of the crew were all accounted for. Their clothes, money, and even personal items were still on board. It was as though the crew had abandoned ship, except that wouldn't have explained the dead bodies. And yet there was no sign of a fight or foul play anywhere. To top it all, nobody knew where the ship was coming from or where it was headed. There was no manifest, no record of its cargo, and nobody knew how long it had been sailing without anyone noticing. Was it haunted? Had something supernatural claimed the lives of the entire crew? And what about the cargo? What was on board the ship that would cause such panic among the crew that they would willingly abandon the vessel? Or was there no cargo at all? Was it really just a ghost ship? When rescue workers finally searched the cabin, they found the remaining members of the crew, the captain, the officers, and the radio operator, all dead in their positions. The captain was slumped over the wheel, the radio operator still sitting by his machine. The chief engineer was found near the boiler room, and the cook was in the galley. All of them had the same wild look on their faces. They were frozen in postures of terror. But even after combing through every part of the ship, the rescuers were unable to discover any clues as to what could have happened to the crew. They found no evidence of a crime, no indication of illness, and the food and water were perfectly safe. The ship's log provided no answers either. The last entry was made on June 1st, 10 days before the ship was found, and it merely recorded the departure of the ship from its previous port. Beyond that, there was nothing to shed light on the mystery of the Ourang Medan. And then came the worst part. The rescuers smelled smoke and rushed to help the men who had gone aboard the Ourang Medan. Soon, flames erupted deep within the hull of the ship. The boarding parties scrambled back to the Silver Star as fast as they could. The ghost ship exploded into flames, splitting its hull wide open as it sank into the sea. Within minutes, the Ourang Medan was gone, taking with it any evidence that might have solved the mystery. Some reports claim that the ship's cargo could have been the reason for the crew's demise. It was said that the Ourang Medan was transporting dangerous chemicals that could have leaked or reacted violently, killing everyone on board. Some say the cargo was a remnant of the war, maybe even deadly nerve agents that soldiers used to carry. This theory is further supported by the fact that the explosion happened in the cargo hold and that the ship went down so quickly. If that was the case, it would explain why the crew panicked and why they left the ship without any attempt to put out the fire. Another theory suggests that carbon monoxide poisoning may have been the culprit. A malfunctioning boiler could have filled the ship with toxic gas, slowly suffocating the sailors. This would explain why they were found in bizarre postures and why there were no signs of a struggle. However, this theory doesn't explain the absence of the lifeboat or the fire. Some people even believe that the paranormal was at play here. Malevolent forces, demonic possession, spirits, or even extraterrestrial interference are among the more sensational theories. Unfortunately, there is no way to prove or disprove these theories, and they remain just that, theories. However, there's one final piece of the puzzle that makes this case truly puzzling. Surprisingly, there are no official records of the SS Ourang Medan existing. No Dutch registry lists the ship. Court records, shipping logs, and maritime archives contain no mention of the vessel or its crew. The ship seems to have vanished from existence, which raises the question, did it ever really exist? There are conflicting reports about whether the ship's name was originally the Ourang Medan, or if it was the Ourang Medan. The name Ourang Medan translates to "people die" in Indonesian. But that is hardly a name a shipping company would choose voluntarily. Moreover, since the wreck was never recovered, physical evidence is scarce, and most accounts come from eyewitness testimonies, which are often unreliable. So was the ship real, or a product of Cold War paranoia? Was it carrying something dangerous or sinister? Or was it just a figment of someone's imagination? We may never know for sure. The legacy of the Ourang Medan lives on. It's forever branded as the Death Ship, a phantom vessel that claimed the lives of an entire crew. The image of those dead sailors with terror etched on their faces is haunting. It is a grim reminder of the mysteries that lie beneath the waves and the secrets they hold close. For those who witnessed the horrors of the Ourang Medan, the memories linger, a haunting testament to a tragedy that defies explanation.